Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Pat Neary. I'm hosting this session, and I wanted to let everybody know that we'll get started in just a minute here. We still can see people joining, so we'll give them an opportunity to do that before we kick things off. I do need to let everybody know that this session is being recorded. All of the attendees are on mute at this point and will remain on mute throughout the entire session. In your console box, you can submit questions. We'll monitor those, do our best to answer those as we go through the material. And then at the end, we'll just do a quick scan of what questions have come through and try and deal with them then. But let's just give everybody another minute and let the numbers creep up. Happily, they are creeping up as well. It looks as though we've got people joining us from all corners of the globe. So it's one of those good morning, good afternoon, good evening sort of introductions. I'll get started now. This is a session that we promoted as a process-driven approach to continuous innovation. I'm being joined today by my colleague, Jack Vandenbrink. Jack is a partner at Quistor, a partner of DWS, and this whole session is intended to help everybody sort of understand and mature their thinking in relation to looking after and evolving, your implementations of Enterprise One. I am Pat Neary, as I said just a minute ago. I've got a global sales and marketing responsibility at DWS. And Jack will introduce himself a little bit later. We've got a point in the agenda where it sort of fits naturally for Jack to add some comments and stuff. And Jack will chip in once or twice today as we go through. And we want both of you or everyone, to feel like you can reach out to us separately, after the fact if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, or things you want to discuss. Whether it's Jack you'd like to speak to or myself, our details are there for you to, to get in touch with us. This isn't a demo. A lot of people come on to these things thinking that they're going to see software and we're going to show people stuff. We aren't planning on doing any of that today. This is really just me presenting, Jack offering his perspective. Should get through the material in about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we'll have a few minutes after that at the end, as I say, to do Q&A. What we're actually going to do is, there's my agenda. We'll go through a brief introduction. We'll discuss the opportunity that continuous innovation sort of affords all of us as people that are running and looking after JD Edwards Enterprise One. We'll get into the process-driven approach that we've put together and documented, and we'll kind of talk about that a bit more, and we'll consider the resources that are required and how you need to go about selling your approach to the businesses that you work in, and bringing the right resources to bear in order to deliver on your strategy and plans. And then we'll do a bit of a close. So that's our plan. And I hope you find it interesting and in some ways thought-provoking. As you all know, JD Edwards, Oracle JD Edwards have been promoting, Enterprise One as a platform for digital innovation. The latest release of the software, Enterprise One 9.2, was brought to market in 2015. And in 2017 at Collaborate, Lyle Ekdahl made a number of announcements. And one of those announcements was that 9.2 was the the last release of Enterprise One. That wasn't an announcement, stating that Enterprise wasn't going to continue to be evolved and improved, but it was a change in strategy. and from an engineering perspective. And they talked about the extended support timelines. At that time, it was at least until 2028, and it's subsequently been extended to 2030 and then 2031. And I think everybody anticipates that date, for Premier support is just going to keep creeping out into the future. But around that same time, there was lots of talk about continuous delivery. Continuous delivery sort of led to people starting to think about continuous adoption and what that meant. And from continuous adoption, we got into continuous innovation. And now when you look at the materials that Oracle's presenting and the things that Oracle are talking about in terms of their strategy for JD Edwards, it's all about continuous innovation. Behind the scenes, what we're really talking about is code currency, taking advantage of the latest and greatest, whether it's tools or whether it's applications, taking advantage of the latest and greatest that's been made available by Oracle and getting that stuff into your environment so that you can be as agile, nimble, and responsive to the requirements of the businesses as you guys go forward. I don't know whether you guys know, but extended support for 9.1 finished in March 2020. So if you're on anything that's not 9.2, all you've got is sustaining support. If you don't know anything about sustaining support or what that is, you can go to the Learn JDE website and the Oracle websites and find out all of that sort of stuff. But I think that's, you do need to be doing something. If you're not on 9.2, you obviously need to get on 9.2 if you're continuing to invest and evolve your businesses with JD Edwards. And if you are on 9.2, you want to take advantage of that. You may not know this, but a lot of the customer base on JD Edwards has moved to 9.2. But there are still as many as a third of the customers around the world that are not yet there. But more and more often than not these days, we're hearing customers talk to us about projects, where they're already on 9.2. And they're either interested in talking about continuous innovation and a code current strategy and what that needs to look like and what that needs to feel like. Or alternatively, they're still in sort of a mindset, which is what I consider to be sort of an upgrade mindset, where, they might be on 9.2, release 9.1, and want to get up to, release 9.2, QM 5 or application update 5, those sorts of things. So, a couple of interesting facts. And I wanted to, at this point, sort of ask the audience, we've got a pretty good audience here, I wanted to pop out and ask you guys to give us a little bit of information about where you're at. And I think it's always useful, to do this. So I'm gonna launch this poll and hopefully this will flash up. So I've distributed the poll and the answers are coming in, give you a sense as to what's happening. And I'll tell you what the answers are here in a second. Only takes a second for everything to come through. But we've got a pretty good mix. No one's admitting to be. Oh, actually, somebody has just come in. Someone is other, but the vast majority of the people are on the call. About a third are on 9.2 with a project planned. A quarter of the people are on 9.2 and have a code current strategy as well as a project planned. And another quarter of the people are not yet on 9.2. So it's a pretty good mix. I think less than 10% of the folks are on 9.2 and think that's good enough for now. But it's sort of just representative of what we see in here when we talk to different people. And Jack will comment on, and share with us what he's seeing and hearing as well in a minute. But that's good. Thank you very much for doing that and letting us know, the sorts of folks who are on the call. Always find that kind of instructive. When you're on 9.2, what we want to get to, you know, is kind of an understanding of what your journey and what your plans are going to be. When you're going to run your next project, you know, how do you view that project? How does your business view that project? In the good old days, you know, when we did upgrades, you know, whether you were on, you know, 9.1 going to 9.2 or even prior to that, you know, it was a big deal. You know, it was a hole in the ground. It was a, you know, it was something that everybody recognized as a major project, and was commanding a lot of attention, not just within the IT organization, but also across the business. And when you start to think about a code current strategy and you start thinking about continuous innovation, it's really important to try and change your mindset and to change the mindset of the people in the business that you serve to think about smaller, faster, and smarter projects. And, you know, for a number of years now, you know, I think it's, you know, it's got to be three plus years, we've been talking about, you know, how DWS and the partners that we work with, you know, can help you run better projects. And when you talk about smaller, faster, and smarter projects, you know, it's easier, you know, to get the projects that you want to run as an IT organization, you know, onto that priority list. If every project's a big project, you know, with all the competing priorities that you see from a project management or program management kind of perspective within a big organization, you know, you're competing, you know, against other big projects, and your projects may never get done. So it's really important to, you know, think about, you know, think about the way you're defining your projects, the way you're talking about the projects, the way you're selling your projects to the business. At this point, I think it's interesting to bring Jack into the conversation and for Jack to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about Quistor. But, you know, beyond that, Jack's going to share a little bit about what he's hearing when he talks to companies that are on JD Edwards, and what it is that they're trying to do. So, Jack, if I can invite you in to share a little bit with the audience, it'd be very good at this point.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Pat, for this. Yeah, indeed, I'm a partner working at Quistor, and Quistor is one of the major partners in Europe for JD Edwards related services. So indeed, we handle these type of requests of customers, yeah, more or less on a daily and weekly basis. Especially also the discussion: should we stay code current, and what are the advantages of this? So typically, what we see over the last couple of years is that we see that a lot of companies made the big leap from whatever older release to 9.2, and also a number of them from 9.1 to 9.2, which is maybe a smaller step. But we see more and more getting into 9.2, but also taking that as more or less a baseline in their ERP, in their ERP life cycle. So what we see that this customer is like, okay, we're on JD Edwards 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and maybe this is a good moment to revise our current landscape, to upgrade JD Edwards, but also make sure that we don't need to do another huge project again. So we see that customers are seeking for improvements. So combine upgrading with moving to the cloud to get from an infrastructure point of view more flexibility in spinning up machines and stuff like that, but also on the application level to make sure that processes are more and more close to standard. And in some cases we even see customers where they say, okay, we have a highly customized process for transportation or for maybe documents output, and then you see that they are adopting maybe additional tools connected with JD Edwards, where they then say, okay, this part is so customized in JD Edwards. It maybe was a strategy years ago when ERP was implemented wall to wall that we should have this in JD Edwards, but looking at it now, it's maybe better to take this out and reduce the custom footprint. And also, I think that's where the tools of DWS come in, is really make sure that these upgrades can be easily done on an annual basis. So we have customers running, for example, tools upgrades every maybe twice a year or once a year, and also an application update at least once a year, or sometimes even more. But that's something where we see that customers really want to do this, and to be able to do that, of course, they need to make sure that they get rid of a lot of old custom code, which sometimes is not even used, or understand the code where it is, and to make sure, okay, that's our baseline from 9.2 going forward, so that we can easily make changes in a kind of cadence where we have a proper release schedule to stay concurrent when Oracle is releasing another application update, or when Oracle is releasing a tools update, to stay really concurrent.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's a mix, isn't it, Jack? I think we're seeing customers that in companies that really want to get a handle on a longer term strategy, so they're not talking to us just about one project, they're talking to us about a series of projects. But then at the same time, we do get conversations, that are one-off. I'm on 9.2 release 2 update 2, and everyone knows now that there's the last set of updates that Oracle talks about was update 5, that cumulative update 5 at the end of last year, and that's a big jump to go from 9.2 update 2 to 9.2 update 5, and in their minds that's a project. So we're getting a mix of one-off projects and longer term strategic initiatives and things.
Yeah.
But what we've done
also,
with thanks, Jack.
It's also related to Patrick, to the industry where a company is in. So, for example, if you're in a highly regulated environment, then probably the impact of running an upgrade is much bigger than, for example, in a less regulated environment where you can more plan and test yourself and don't have all this burden around that. So in those cases, we see that where some customers can easily do 1 or 2 upgrades a year, we others see where they say, okay, it's such an impact, let's do it every 2 years instead of two times a year, for example.
Yeah. No, that's very good points. So when we sort of move on, when we think about the process-driven approach, we've drafted this and put this together to help companies sort of structure their thinking and organize the resources ultimately that are going to be required in order to deliver on a project or on a series of projects over a number of years. And we wanted to put it together so that it doesn't matter where you are or where you're coming from. You've got something that you can grasp and hang on to and use to help you seize the continuous innovation opportunity. And whether that's a one-off project or a series of projects over a number of years is totally up to you. This framework, where we talk about doing analysis, includes both the business analysis, the business impact, and an understanding of the functionality and stuff that's being introduced by Oracle. But it also involves code level analysis and a very detailed understanding of what you're doing from a modified footprint perspective. So there's a whole bit of analysis that needs to be done, and the results of your analysis and decisions you make as a consequence of your analysis, will lead to some retrofitting. And our experience, suggests, that retrofitting is and can be, a very significant part of any code current change event project. And it's an area where DWS specializes, is with the technical analysis and the code level retrofitting. But then you've got to go through and do your implementation, and you have to implement. It's not just delivering code, is it? You've got to implement. You've got to think about the business impact. You've got to think about change management. You've got to think about training. You've got to think about documentation and all of those sorts of things. And you've got to test everything that you've done before you can go live. So what we've put together, is really pretty simple. It's very repeatable. it's a framework, it's this process that you can kind of go through, as Jack says, once every 6 months, once every 12 months, once every 18 months, once every 2 years, whatever's right for you and for your business. And as Jack suggested, if you're in a pharmaceutical industry, highly regulated and controlled, you're not going to be doing this sort of stuff very often, but you can do it, once every 18 months to 2 years. And you don't want something that's difficult to manage. So this sort of framework is fairly easy to manage. And it caters for, all of, and it addresses at a high level all of the requirements, I talked a little bit about retrofitting and implementing. And when you get into testing, we know there's a lot of testing that needs to be done, and testing always gets flagged up as a barrier to being able to run projects in a business, because it's not just the IT resources and the testing that need to be done within the IT department. There's a point, as you get ready to go live, where you need to do integration testing and acceptance testing. And people need to give some thought to how they're getting through the testing associated with every single one of their change event projects, and what tools they're using as they get into testing, do the testing, and try and lighten the load on the end user, because it's the end users that are out there doing the business, and we want them doing the business. We don't want them distracted and spending a lot of time on change event projects, because we want these change event projects to be, as it's described here, as simple as possible, as repeatable as possible, as easy to manage, as smart, as fast as possible. So as you think about delivering, with this kind of approach, it's really important to think about the resources and who's going to be doing what. And one of the things that, that we sort of throw out there is the idea that there's lots of people out there that can help you. And you don't have to do it yourself. Obviously, your own people will be involved, and there will be a role to play. But you can bring other people in. Jack's organization, Quistor, is a skilled, reputable, referenceable systems integrator who's run lots and lots of successful projects. But you can also bring in specialist service providers, and DWS is a company that I would describe as a specialist service provider, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But it's not just the people you bring in. It's you should be questioning, what tools and technologies you want to bring in. And at this point, Jack, I'll ask you to come in again and just spend a couple of minutes talking about your experience of using, specialist service providers and taking advantage of some of the tools and resources that are available out there in the market, just generally, and also as it relates to DWS specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, of course, what we see indeed is that we, as an all-round system integrator, we use what you call as a specialist service provider like DWS, indeed, in specific cases where we see that, for example, there is a need to have a detailed analysis on the customizations and stuff like that. Then we know that we can do this as every partner, but if you really need to have to dig down in this in more detail, then it's maybe good to incorporate a specialist partner like DWS to do so. And that's what we already did a number of times in the past. So I think from that point of view, it is really can be a one-off, but also not only on the retrofit tools, but all and analyze tools, because that's an as-is service for a specific upgrade. We also see that, of course, with the testing, with the testing tools to really take this as a one-off. But what we see more and more is also in line with the code current strategy of customers is that they also don't want to have this like a one-off, but they want to have probably say, okay, we want to use this more as a service, and then we can either subcontract DWS as a service, but also sometimes we just incorporate this whole thing as part of our managed service. So what we see more and more that customers rely on us as a strategic advisor, as a partner, yeah, running and maintaining that system is okay. But yeah, let's also make sure that you can keep this code current and not only deliver the technical parts on that, but also make sure that you using the right systems to support us on this. And of course, Oracle has its own tools, but there are specific tools like the DWS tools, which are much better and much more advanced than the standard Oracle tools. Or sometimes Oracle hasn't even have a proper tool for some of these parts. Then we'll see that we can use that and offer it as a way where we incorporate those licenses as part of our services, and then delivering the customer the added value in a combination of licenses where they don't need to bother about the license as such, and our services. So, and then if we combine that as part of our managed service, the customers are often very happy to don't have to worry about this and really do this as a more or less ongoing engagement.
Yeah, it's good. It is interesting, isn't it? As I settled into the DWS business, 4 years ago, it became really very apparent to me that, our mission is to help companies that are running JD Edwards be successful. And, anybody who's running JD Edwards and continues to invest in JD Edwards, it was trying to think about how we could help them. And it became clear to me that we can work directly with customers and companies, but we can also work and do work very successfully with systems integrators. And our professional services are available to the partner community and to end customers, as are our testing products. We sell our testing products to to companies that are running the software, but then we also have companies like Quistor who are buying and using our testing products in support of the relationships they have with their customers. So I talked about DWS as a specialist and a specialist service provider, and we've made our living for a long time, looking after JD Edwards Enterprise One code. And I always say that, make retrofitting our problem. It's part of your project, but it doesn't have to consume a lot of headspace you can make a choice. You can bring us in, you can let us do our thing, and we can take the risk associated with estimating and figuring out the time and all of that stuff that it'll take, in the context of your project, to just do the retrofitting piece for you. And we do that very, very successfully, and we can do that in a couple of different ways. We talked about the one-off code current planning and retrofitting opportunities that some 9.2 customers are coming to us with, and we've used and developed our intellectual property for Dimension Analyze and Dimension Professional to help companies upgrade, but we've also adapted and modified and improved those same tools to help people do fixed price, fixed timeline, zero defect projects that are already on 9.2. So a 9.2 to 9.5, 9.2 update 2 to 9.2 update 5 kind of project we can do in the same way that we used to do an upgrade. But for the more sophisticated and for the folks that are interested in crafting and committing to a code current strategy, a strategy that supports continuous innovation, we obviously will encourage you guys to adopt the process-driven approach that we described here for continuous innovation. But we'd like to have our Dimension Tempo code current retrofitting as a service be part of your strategy and delivery. And what we do with Dimension Tempo is give you cost certainty over a 3-year period and predictability. Within each project, the projects look and feel very much the same, but what you're signing up to and what we're committing to is a set price in each of the 3 years around the projects that you'll be running, and that's very attractive to some people. And happily we've got some some good customers that are having success with a continuous innovation strategy and code currency. The second thing that we always talk about from a DWS company perspective, are our testing products. And we have 3 different offerings, or 3 different products in our offering. The first one called Swift Test allows you to script and automate, the testing that you do, either from a very simple transactional perspective or from a business process perspective with queues. And it's an extremely business analyst, super user-friendly tool that, is JD Edwards aware. It's been written specifically for companies that are, that are familiar and for users of the JD Edwards software. So it's really kind of cool and very, very helpful. And alongside Swift Test, you can extend that solution to do load testing. So we can create load to help you with performance, volume, stress type testing requirements. And the final product within our portfolio is called Dimension Focus. And Focus is very much geared to help you understand the business impact. We talked early on about the analysis, and I talked about the technical analysis, but there's a business impact analysis that needs to be done. And Focus is very, very useful to help you as someone who needs to plan and successfully manage each and every one of your code current change event projects. Focus is a very valuable tool in that process, and we've got a number of customers that analyze their projects, using Dimension Focus, and then better plan projects and better execute the testing that they do on those projects. So a process-driven approach to continuous innovation ensures that, your projects, are going to run well, and that you, as individuals, will enhance Enterprise One standing within your organizations and cement Enterprise One as a platform for digital transformation and continuous innovation with your businesses. Now, with that, I'm going to bring this thing to a close. I've done our 30 minutes, and I thank you for that. And I'll invite any questions. If anybody has any questions, please fire those through the console. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have. I see one that relates to testing services, and it's related to the smarter testing and what Jack talked about from from a managed service perspective. What DWS has brought to market are products, that you can subscribe to and use as a service. So it's software as a service. And the systems integrators or your own people are the ones that actually use the products to do the testing. So that's what our testing products sort of look like and feel like from a from a project perspective. And you can use them for a one-off project. They'll pay for themselves in that context, but they'll obviously really pay longer-term dividends if they're part of a strategy that sees you running regular projects and doing repetitive testing over and over and over again. What Dimension Focus does, there's a very specific question about Dimension Focus does. What Dimension Focus does is allow you as someone running a project to basically go to the change assistant, within JD Edwards Enterprise One and download all of the ESUs that you would like to apply in your environment. Now, you just download those ESUs into your environment. You don't install those ESUs. But with those downloaded ESUs and the tools that we provide and the software that we provide, we'll do some extracts and create an analytic perspective of that project from a testing, in terms of business impact and testing. So Focus looks at your menus, it looks at your roles, and it looks at your code as well as the code that Oracle is delivering to you in ESUs or bundles of ESUs or in an update. And it processes all of that information and then graphically presents that information back to you so that you can figure out where within the business resources are going to be impacted, how much impact there actually is, and all of those sorts of things. So I hope that answers the question on dimension focus. I think there's another one. There's a question about the automated testing and the scripting. Just very, very quickly on that. Everybody wants to know how long it takes to write a script and what efforts associated with that. And my answer very simply is you don't get something for nothing. So what you would normally do, in terms of documenting a script or a scenario, in terms of on paper or in a spreadsheet, you're going to spend at least that much time and maybe as much as 25% more time getting that script into Swift test. And then Swift test will allow you, to reuse those things and to automatically execute those things as you go forward. So there is a small tax to pay, but the tax you pay associated with creating the scripts and getting your scripts into Swift test is typically returned even in your very first project. I tell the story of a pharmaceutical company in Scandinavia that used our software, and their original project plan allowed 5 weeks for them to script and do one round of well, not just one round, but to clear one of the to meet one of the testing requirements that they had within the pharmaceutical industry. And within that 5 weeks, having committed to use Dimension Swift test, they were able to write all of their scripts and run all of their scripts. So the project timeline didn't change. They delivered the testing requirement within the project timeline as they would have originally. Obviously, the way they did the work and the way they did the testing, was a little bit different. Okay, I think that's it. Is there anything else? Please don't hesitate to reach out to Jack or myself. I mean, we'd be more than happy to speak to you guys. And for now, I think I've covered the questions that have been asked. And if I haven't, as I say, ping me, we'll get you answers. If you want to see any of the software, let us know. We'll organize demos. There's lots of resources available on our website and on our YouTube channel as well. We'd be happy to spend time bringing you up to speed and getting you comfortable with the idea of continuous innovation and how our services might be employed in support of projects that you're running or a strategy that you're looking to deliver, or as it relates to testing products. Jack, do you want to say any final words?
No, I think the only thing I want to say, Pat, is thank you for giving me the opportunity to join this webinar and to talk about our experience and how we can work together and how we can use your great products in delivering our services, and also with that adding value to our end customers. And then indeed, I'm available for any talks or discussions people on this webinar like to have, and they can reach out directly to me or through you, and then we'll can have further discussions. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, great. Well, no, Jack, thank you very much as well. We appreciate your contribution and support. DWS works with a number of partners, and we're all doing our best to serve the community. And it's great to have you on, Jack, and hope we're able to do more with you in the weeks and months to come. And we hope some of you that are on the call do reach out to us and ask further questions. But for now, let's wrap it up and speak in due course, hopefully. All the best, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.